Welcome back, and we're joined over the phone by Mr. Ramzy Khoury, journalist from Jordan, to shed more light on the current situation taking place. Sir, how do you see President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's status, where he stressed that the Palestinian cause is the mother of all causes and has a significant impact on security and stability, and with the current escalation that we're seeing in Gaza and the latest developments that took place over there, and the current demonstrations also taking place here in Egypt and also in other countries?
Hello, Naveen, and I have to stress that the position of Egypt, as well as that of Jordan, of not allowing another displacement of the Palestinian people to outside of their territories, was vital in stopping a plan that was agreed upon and which was going to create another catastrophe for the Palestinian people, and it could definitely not have achieved peace for anybody. The biggest problem that we are faced today with Netanyahu and his government is that Netanyahu is working for himself. He's not even working for Israel anymore. All he's worried about today, there was a Ma'arif poll that showed that 80% of the Israeli population hold him responsible for all of the violence and the war that is going on today. And if he was to go into elections, his government will not last in 5 minutes if this is over. So what he needs to do is to show that he was able to achieve what others could not achieve before him. And he thought that the displacement of the Palestinian people to outside of their territories, those in Gaza, throw them out in Egypt, those in the West Bank, throw them out in Jordan. He thought that if he could pull this off, that would be the greatest victory that anybody has achieved for Israel since its inception in 1948. But he didn't get away with it. And Egypt said there is never that going to happen. On the contrary, the border with Rafah has to be open for medical supplies, for food, for fuel to come in, and this carnage needs to stop. Not only does the carnage need to stop, but also the world needs to pressure Israel to start moving towards the two-state solution.
Yes, sir, Egypt has a long-standing support of the establishment of a Palestinian state. Now, how do you evaluate the Egyptian humanitarian support of people in Gaza and the importance of allowing aid to enter to Gaza?
This is a matter of life and death, Naveen. The Palestinians inside of Gaza, the civilian population, have run out of medicines, they've run out of food, they've run out of water, and they've run out of fuel. At the same exact time, Israel is still bombarding Gaza and hitting the civilian populations in an attempt to raise the carnage formula to a formula that is acceptable to them in their racist apartheid style of thinking. An example of this is, and there is absolutely no need to kill all of these civilians if you are fighting Hamas. They are blowing people out of their homes, the homes collapsing on their heads. The vast majority of people killed are children, women, civilians who have absolutely no relation to any military action against Israel. And as this is happening, hospitals are closing down because of shortage of fuel, because of lack of medicine, because of lack of doctors. Israel is attacking the health infrastructure of Gaza, attacking ambulances, attacking hospitals, killing doctors, and this line of the light that has been lit today with the Egyptian decision to open the border and to send in supplies. Even Guterres standing on the border of Rafah, the UN Secretary General today on the side of Egypt, to declare that tomorrow at least 20 trucks of material are going to go through this border and to reach the Palestinian civilians. That's a line of life that has been given to the Palestinian people inside of Gaza. And it is a matter of life and death, because one more week of this without any supplies coming in means that Palestinians will die from hunger, they will die because of lack of medicine, they will die because of lack of hospitals and medical crew, they will die because of lack of healthy water, which is also another very big issue. Gazans are now drinking water that is not sanitary water. They will get sick and they will die from sickness that is related to not having access to clean water.
Yes.
And as you know, the infrastructure of any city does not work without electricity. And electricity is the only way to have electricity in Gaza is to bring in fuel. And Gaza is running out of fuel. Israel has always been in control of all of these vital infrastructure issues such as water, fuel, etc. And what Israel has decided to do is to ban the Palestinian people living in Gaza, the civilians, from all of the means for life. And
Yes,
what Egypt did now is it said this is not going to happen under our watch.
Yes, sir. Well, as you've just mentioned, the people of Gaza are now suffering day after day, the worsening situation over there, being deprived of water, electricity, fuel, and the basic needs of daily life. Now, and we've seen also the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the Rafah border crossing, trying to move on the humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. Now, how do you think we can further pressure the international community? How can the United Nations and other international organizations pressure the international community and the United States to de-escalate the situation in Gaza?
By standing up and declaring what is right from what is wrong. This double standard policy of Palestinian lives do not matter, Arab lives do not matter, Muslim lives do not matter. And after the bombardment of a Christian church in Gaza, there is also another message that has been sent to world leaders and world communities, the people of the world, which is Christian lives don't even matter to Israel. We've always known that. There is nothing new about that. But here you go. They did a massacre in the Orthodox Church in Gaza. It's one of the oldest churches in the world. It's the third oldest church in the world. And they think they are going to get away with it. They cannot continue to get away with it. And we need to make everybody aware. The Arab world is all up in arms. There are demonstrations in Egypt, in Jordan, in Qatar, in Lebanon, all over, and also in the West. And this is very important, Naveen.
Yes.
The West needs to come out and talk. And let me tell you something. There were several demonstrations inside of America that were conducted by the American Jewish communities.
Yes.
American Jews are coming out now and saying, not in my name. Do not massacre innocent civilians in my name.
Yes.
And Israel does not represent me. And this is very important.
Yes, sure. Mr. Khoury, Egypt has a long-standing support of the establishment of a Palestinian state. Now, how do you evaluate the Egyptian humanitarian support of people in Gaza and the importance of allowing aid to enter?
The importance of that is dramatic. It is a matter of life and death. What the decision of the Egyptian government and their ability to reach an agreement with the world community, including America and the Europeans, that aid will go into Gaza, is a decision that will save the life of the 2 million Palestinian civilians who are in Gaza. It is a matter of life or death. And regarding the two-state solution that Egypt has been calling for all throughout, 75 years of occupation, 75 years of carnage, 75 years of harming the Palestinians and killing them, civilians, imprisoning them, every kind of humiliation they could do has not stopped the Palestinians from resisting. And the reason is because the oppressed will resist. Any oppressed, anywhere in the world, they will resist, and they will get better at their resistance. And it will get more fierce with time. Therefore, the only thing that can be done to stop this carnage, to stop the massacres, is to stop the oppression. They can stop the oppression tomorrow by sitting and negotiating a two-state solution. And that will be the end of the conflict, and everything will be fine. And unless the root cause of the problem is solved, the problem will continue and it will persist. And every single time we get into events like the events we are living in right now, it will be worse. It will not be better. It will be worse. And what Israel needs to understand, and the Israeli people who have elected this government, this very extreme right-wing government that has led Israel to where it is today, these who elected it need to understand that they will pay the price. A state of apartheid is not going to live in peace for as long as the people who are subjected to it and to its laws are oppressed. And so solving the root cause is the only way forward. And this is what Egypt has been saying.
Yes.
And this is what others also in the Arab world and the reasonable people in the West have been saying.
Right. Well, Mr. Khoury, a peace settlement a summit will be held in Cairo. A peace summit is expected to be held tomorrow in Cairo to reach a comprehensive peace settlement based on international legitimacy and preserving the right of the Palestinian people, on top of which is the establishment of a Palestinian state according to the 1967 borders. What are your expectations for this summit?
Well, the summit is extremely important because a unified position that actually tells the truth and puts everything in perspective is extremely important. And it's very important for the whole world to see that kind of summit happen and the resolutions of the summit coming out and for the whole world to hear. This is extremely important. I am very worried about the fact that Netanyahu has always worked for himself. And all Netanyahu is worried about is himself. And Netanyahu needs for this to be long. And he needs to drag it out every day that this goes on. To Netanyahu may save his political career. And this is what he's trying to do because he's going to drown the minute that this stops. And the Israeli people wake up and they start wondering, was the racism in Jerusalem, the West Bank, and in Gaza the reason why all of this happened? And at what cost? And when that happens, then Netanyahu has to pay the price. So what Netanyahu is trying to do now is to procrastinate, is to buy time. And he will buy time at the expense of everybody, at the expense of civilians in Gaza, at the expense of the civilians in the West Bank, in Jerusalem, even in 1948 areas, but also at the expense of Israeli citizens, because he doesn't care about Israeli citizens. All he cares about is his own benefits and his own political career, and he cares about not being tried for corruption and not going into prison. The reason why the Israeli society was divided in the past 2 years, because he even tried to change what is perceived by Israelis as a democratic system in order to save himself in court. Of course, it was never a democratic system because you cannot have democracy only for Jews. Democracy would have to be for everybody. For a state to be democratic, it's a state of apartheid by all means.
Yes, as we have witnessed today, and we're still witnessing, millions of Egyptians are rallying to the streets in key squares around Egypt, in Cairo and different governorates, in support of the Palestinian people in Gaza and in support of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's support for the Palestinian stance. And the rallies are in support of the Egyptian stance pointed out by President el-Sisi, rejecting deportation of Palestinians from their land, which could bring an end to the Palestinian cause. So what's your take on that specifically, rejecting deportation of the Palestinians from their land, which could cause an end to the Palestinian cause in general?
It is so funny that Israel actually thinks that the Palestinians would actually accept doing to them what Israel did in 1948 and 1967, when it threw millions of Palestinians out into exile. Palestinians who are still refugees living in refugee camps in several countries in the world. And the Palestinians would accept that, and the Palestinians would do that. That's not going to happen. And of course, the brothers of the Palestinians, the Arabs, would never accept for that to happen again. This is something that has happened in history, and the Palestinians and the Arabs have paid for until today. And to fall into the same trap, to allow for the same disaster and catastrophe to be repeated again, is the most ridiculous notion. And this is the problem with the apartheid state. This Israeli state of occupation and apartheid is so racist that they think they can pull it off again. And this is not the case. It's not the case anymore. It's not 1967, and it's definitely not 1948. Mm-hmm. Today is 2023, and the Palestinians are extremely educated, and they know what would happen if they even accepted to leave their own land and go into exile. And this will definitely not stop the war or the resistance to oppression. Anything like this, even if it was forced, and when I say by force, even if Israel is capable of occupying Gaza and arresting the 2 million Palestinians who are in Gaza and moving them across the borders, they will find a way to come back, and they will find a way to resist. And it is not going to stop. All of this is designed to help Netanyahu get out of his political problems. This is not a practical solution. And the Arabs would never allow it. Jordan is not going to allow another immigration of Palestinians. Egypt is not going to allow it. Nobody is going to allow it. And it's not going to happen. Not only this is not an excuse to stop medical and humanitarian aid to the Palestinians, the Palestinian civilian population inside of Gaza. Mm-hmm. You either leave or you die. Well, this is a war crime. And what Israel has been doing in the past 2 weeks now is a major amount of war crimes. They have broken every international law in the most blatant of ways. And it's becoming embarrassing, you know. It's getting embarrassing to the Americans who have pledged full support to the Israelis. It's getting very embarrassing to the Western European governments that have pledged full support to the Israelis. They're already backtracking, and they're already talking about humanitarian aid to Gaza, because they realize that these war crimes, it's not just Israelis who may have to stand in front of a war crime tribunal in the future. If you whitewash war crimes, then you are a war criminal under international law. If you defend war crimes, if you justify war crimes, it's against the international law. You could be standing in front of a war crime tribunal in the future to answer for being a partner in the crime. And they are realizing this, and they're backtracking. Mm-hmm. And really, what they need to do is to take action, because statements of support for humanitarian aid without action is garbage. And I think that there are enough people, even amongst the populations in the West, that realize this and who are telling their governments, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? This is not humanitarian. This is not humane. And your position is ridiculous. It is against international law. It is against all norms of humanity, and definitely against every single resolution that the United Nations have taken out. The other problem that these people are facing, with all honesty, they came out with all of these beautiful principles when it came to Ukraine, and their people want to understand why is it that these principles are not applied on the Palestinians? How come Russia should never cut off water to the Ukrainian people, but Israel can actually cut off water to Gaza, and Israel can actually stop medicine from entering Gaza, and Israel can massacre all of these civilians, and nobody has a problem with it. But that's not acceptable in Ukraine, and this is really a very big problem that the Western governments are facing with their own populations right now.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mr. Khoury, now due to the current humanitarian situation in Gaza and the suffering of the Gaza people, in your opinion, how can we reach and restore calm in Gaza and reach a ceasefire solution to avoid more escalation of violence in the Gaza Strip?
The only way this can happen is through Western pressure on Israel. What Egypt and the Arab world can do is to stop forced immigration of Palestinians into exile. What Egypt can do and is doing right now is to force Israel to allow humanitarian aid into the Palestinian territories. And this is what Egypt is doing right now. But the only party that can actually force Netanyahu and his right-wing government to stop this carnage and not to allow for this situation to be a prolonged situation that will achieve a lot of humanitarian carnage in Gaza and in the West Bank is for international pressure. So what we all need to do is to make sure that the Americans, and they are the primary force that can pressure Israel. Unfortunately, the visit that Biden did to Israel, in which he gave Israel a green light to go ahead and do whatever they fancy, and pledged over $14 billion in military aid to Israel, is encouraging Israel to continue, is encouraging Netanyahu to try to save his political career by prolonging this catastrophe that is going on, this terrible fiasco in which a very strong military power. What strong military power? American airplanes are dropping American bombs on the head of civilians. There is no courage in that, and there is no military power in that, by the way. Israel is a cowardly state for doing this. Israel is a criminal state for doing this. And the Americans, it's their F-16s, it's their equipment, it is their bombs that they are donating to Israel that is dropping on the civilian population. It's bad. It is what is killing the civilian population. And America needs to be embarrassed before America is willing to put pressure on Israel to stop the carnage. And the reason why America is not very willing, it's because now the Republicans and Democrats in America are competing on who loves Israel more in order for them to be able to win the next elections next year. And this is why I stressed that hearing thousands of Jewish Americans coming out and saying, not in my name, what Israel is doing is a war crime, is very important, because the American political system needs to understand that the American population are not racist, and they don't want to see Palestinians dead, and they are now aware of the atrocities that Israel is committing, and that these are war crimes. When that happens, American politicians will rethink, and American politicians will tell Israel, you know what, you're really putting our political careers now in danger. It is not just Netanyahu's political career that's on the line, but our own political careers are on the line. And therefore, the more we are able to raise our voice, the more we are able to clarify the truth to Western nations, then the more we are going to see Western governments getting really worried about their own political careers, putting pressure on Israel to end this fiasco, this cowardly fiasco, because it is not really very courageous to send out military aircraft that are dropping thousands of bombs on civilian heads. Over a quarter of a nuclear bomb has been dropped on the heads of civilians in Gaza. And this is not military power. This cannot make anybody proud. This is a cowardly act. It's a cowardly act. Mm-hmm. And the more it is clear that it is a cowardly act, the more Western governments are going to be embarrassed by it. And therefore pressure will be put on Israel.
Right. Mr. Khoury, the National Security Council in Egypt reviewed the military escalation in Gaza and stressed the two-state solution is the only resolution to the Palestinian cause while rejecting the policy of displacement. Can you please elaborate on the Council statement?
I'm so sorry, I lost your voice for a second. Just
okay, I repeat my question, sir.
Yes.
The National Security Council in Egypt reviewed the military escalation in Gaza and stressed the two-state solution is the only resolution to the Palestinian cause while rejecting the policy of displacement. Now, can you please elaborate on the Security Council statement?
There is no question that this is it. The only way we can stop this from ever happening again is to tackle the root causes. The root cause for all of the hostilities that go on inside of Palestine, whether it's Gaza or the West Bank, is the occupation. The occupation has to end. And without the occupation ending, the next bout of violence that is going to break may be worse than this bout for both sides. And the Israeli people need to understand this. And it's the Israeli people who are electing these governments that are fascists and right-wing. They need to actually understand that unless they reach a resolution to the Palestinian issue, they will never be able to live in peace, and they will never be safe. And this last bout was a very clear message to the Israeli nation itself that they are not safe and that they will pay a price and that the Palestinians in their resistance are getting stronger and stronger all the time. And therefore, yes, the resolution, the Security Council resolution is very clear regarding this issue. Come and sit down on the table and reach a resolution. The only resolution that keeps Israel as a Jewish state is for a two-state solution. So if Israel wishes to stay as a Jewish state, which I personally don't have much respect for the idea, because that would be racism in itself, but nevertheless, if that's the case, then it's a two-state solution. If that's not the case, if it's not the two-state solution, at the end of the day, it will be a one-state solution. And in that case, there would be no Jewish state. Because the Arabs who are living between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea are more in number than the Jews who are living between the river and the Mediterranean Sea. And these Muslims, Christians, Druze, and who are not Jewish, who are living there, do not enjoy equal rights. So if they were to enjoy equal rights, and there would be fair and free elections in a one-state solution, then that state for sure is not a state that enjoys a majority of Jews. And this is where the issue is. And they say, oh, in that case, then it is the destruction of Israel. Well, if you are worried about losing your beloved Israel, that is a state for Jews only, then why have you ignored Oslo, Madrid, and all of that process for the past 30-some years in order to maintain your occupation and state of apartheid. If you don't want a one-state solution, then go and finish and close a deal on a two-state solution. The Palestinian leadership has accepted a state on a fifth of their historic land, 1/5 of their historic land, 22% of their historic land. This is what they accepted. And Israel rejected it, and Israel didn't make it happen. So the problem is with Israel. And Israel needs to understand that it's not going to end. And the Palestinians are not going to disappear. And the whole Arab and Muslim world is not going to disappear. And Israel is not going to create a Red Israel that does not only occupy Palestine, but goes all the way to the Euphrates, takes over the whole of Jordan and Lebanon, and also part of Iraq, and even possibly part of Egypt. And that's not going to happen. It's over. Israel was not able to achieve it. Israel cannot achieve it today. They will never be able to achieve it in the future. The only option in front of Israel today is to go towards the two-state solution, to reach an agreement, resolve this conflict. A Palestinian state is erected. The Palestinian people are now free, and everybody is going to be fine. Anything else than this, we will never end the violence. We could stop this war right now, but another one will erupt. If it doesn't erupt this year, it will erupt next year, and so on and so forth. And this is how it works. So, yes, absolutely. This is exactly what Egypt said and what the Security Council resolution said.
Right. Well, I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Ramzy Khoury, a journalist from Jordan. Many thanks for your insights, sir.